Thank you so much. It is truly a pleasure to be back, and I will say it's been a little surreal. There have been a lot of changes, and some things are just exactly the same. Most notably, the carpet. I've been. It's like that.
Maybe this summer.
Yeah, no, the carpet's great. It's just funny that that's sort of what stands out as being the same.
Some classrooms have been updated.
Yeah? Yeah.
Not professional, no. But we have done some. We're award-winning.
Yes, but we are award-winning. That's right. That's right. Yeah?
Yes.
So it occurred to me this morning, I haven't been here since the summer of 2010. That was actually my last day on campus. And then, yeah, and I so much wanted to attend the 50th anniversary celebration, but I just couldn't figure out a way to. I actually was looking at a flight that was going to fly up Tuesday morning and then fly back Tuesday night, but I just decided that's probably crazy even for my standards. Maybe I can do something and combine it with Mother's Day. So I'm here to visit my mom and my grandma. Yeah, and came just a little bit early and so thrilled to be able to be here with you today. So this is very special. So I just have a little presentation that I've shared with Valencia's leadership team, with our student leaders, and they like it. So I thought, maybe you would too. We'll give it a try. We can talk about anything you'd like. That's what's beautiful about the flexibility of today. So if this gets boring, we can sort of move on. But I do have this leadership philosophy that I like to call the art of being unreasonable. And sometimes people take the word unreasonable to mean something different than I intend. So I just want to talk for a minute about what I mean by being unreasonable. So I just want to tell a story of one of our students. This is Rafael. Rafael lives in a community in Florida that is served by Valencia College. That's where I work now. It's a community called Point Siena. There's about 80,000 residents in Point Siena, and it's only located about 12 miles from one of Valencia's campuses. But the challenge is that there's a really big lake that separates those 12 miles. And so the road system, really, there's only one way in and one way out. So for students who have a car, it's about an hour drive from where they live to the campus. And most of the students in this community don't have a car, and so they take the bus. And it literally can be a 2.5-hour ride each way on the bus. So you can imagine that not many of the high school graduates from this community go to college. But Rafael first visited our campus. We do a tour of the campus where we actually have school buses from the school district to bring students to campus. And he fell in love with the campus. And he decided that he was going to go to college. So we're super excited to have Rafael as a student. One of Rafael's challenges is that he lives with his sister and her boyfriend, not with mom and dad. And for those of you in student affairs, you know that can make the FAFSA just a little bit more complicated. And Rafael was actually selected for verification, which requires a whole nother level of proof to get your financial aid. Long story short, Rafael's financial aid didn't process before the first day of the semester. And he was really counting on his financial aid to purchase a bus pass to be able to commute to the college. So he didn't have a bus pass. He couldn't make it to campus. But he had heard in new student orientation how important it was to come to the first day of classes. One of Valencia's big ideas is that the first minute of every class is a learning minute. So we want to make sure that students are there on the first day. So Rafael walked from Point Siena to the campus, 12 miles in August in Florida. Yes, and because of that, he only had to walk once, right? So his classmates saw it, his faculty saw it, and we figured out how to get him a bus pass that same day, right? But that's what I mean by being unreasonable, right? When there are all sorts of reasons where you could say, I can't do this, or I give up, or it's just not possible. What could you do to make it happen? So that's what I mean when I say being unreasonable. I don't mean being obnoxious or things, right? But just overcoming those obstacles or overcoming those odds. So I have 5 guiding principles that help me think about unreasonable leadership. So the first is, and you can attribute this quote to whomever you'd like, but I like to use Abraham Lincoln in Florida because it sort of connects me back to my roots in Illinois. But best way to predict the future is to create it. So I want to do just a little exercise with you. If I have already done this with you way in the past, don't give away the answer, all right? So, but I want you to think about, imagine that you could go anywhere in the world tonight for dinner. Anywhere in the world.
I got it. I want it.
You can order anything you want. We'll teleport you there, so you don't even have to worry about like the obnoxious part of getting to O'Hare and then spending time on the airplane and all that misery. We can just snap our fingers, you're there. Cost is no problem. You can order anything you want. So where would you go and what would you eat?
Kona, Hawaii.
Kona, Hawaii. Fish?
Kona Inn, mahi mahi.
Yes, very good. Awesome. Excellent. Others? Yeah, Pat. Pat.
Grill in Houston, 6
Yeah.
blocks from my daughter's house.
There you go. Very good.
I was going to say, meet family I've never met in Italy.
Italy. Nice. Very good. Yeah? Everybody's got their menu in mind? Yeah, you got it? So sometimes I get Italy, pasta in Italy. That's a common response. See, I live in Kissimmee, very large Puerto Rican population. Mofongo is a very popular Puerto Rican dish. So I get that answer a lot. France, no one said France, right? And then Mexico, enchiladas, right? There are all sorts of amazing places you could go with amazing meals, right? You can see yourself there. You can almost taste what that dinner would be like, right? No matter how often I do this exercise, there is one answer that I've never gotten, and that is Denny's. Yeah, right? So there's nothing wrong with Denny's. There's really not. Every time that I go, I order moons over my hammy. That's like my favorite thing. There's something about the sourdough bread, right? It's good, right? But it's not having pasta in Italy, right? Or it's not having fish on the beach in Hawaii, right? There's a difference. And so how do you have dinner at Denny's, right? You're probably maybe out shopping with family. You've been out all day. People are getting hangry, right? Like, let's find something to eat. Where do you want to go to eat? I don't care. Where do you want to go? I don't care. Where do you want? And then you see a sign for Denny's and you end up at Denny's, right? There's nothing wrong. You can get a good meal at Denny's, but you end up there as compared to the meal that you would have if you envisioned it and were able to create it. Yeah, Tony.
I eat at Denny's almost every Sunday. because my father was 94.
Yeah?
You get pancakes there for $1.97. And coffee's only like 10 cents.
Yeah? Yeah? I personally am a big fan of Cracker Barrel. I frequent there almost every Sunday, so I get it. And I think I would rather have fresh fish in Hawaii. Just saying. So I want to tell you a story about another one of our students who really created a vision for herself. So this is Alex. Alex also is the first in her family to go to college. And when she came to Valencia, she actually placed into developmental reading, writing, and math. So she needed developmental coursework in all three areas. And historically, Valencia's graduation rate for students who come to us needing 3 preps is about 12% in 5 years. Got to the point where we were actually having ethical conversations about, is it ethical to accept students' tuition dollars, knowing that their likelihood of success is so low. So we created a cohort program called REACH, where students take developmental reading, writing, math, and student success, basically MCC 101, all together in a learning community in their first semester. And then they take Comp 1, Introduction to Humanities, Speech, and Intermediate Algebra in their second semester. And then in the summer term, they take Comp 2 and College Algebra. So by being in this program, they get 21 college credit hours, and they get through the math sequence and the English sequence in their first year. And we have seen tremendous success by creating a learning community where these students take all of their classes together. We engage them in very specific and meaningful co-curricular experiences. They actually outperform students who come to Valencia college ready because of this community experience that we've created. And one of the fun things that we do is at the end of every semester, we host a lunch for any student who earned all A's and B's to celebrate their success. So this is where I first met Alex. And I was asking Alex where she was from, and she said Poinciana. And I said, wow, Alex, that's far away. How long does it take you to drive? And she kind of hesitated. You could tell she was embarrassed. And she said, Dr. Plinske, I don't have a car. I take the bus. And that's when she shared with me that bus ride was 2.5 hours. And silly me, I said, wow, I can't imagine spending 2.5 hours every day on the bus. To which she said, I actually spend 5 hours. Yeah. So she literally gets up at 5 in the morning to get on a bus, to get to campus, and then leaves campus at about 3 or 4 o'clock and gets home at 6 or 7 in the evening and does that every day. And the funny thing about Alex, of course, is that she's in classes 4 days a week. She's not doing any of this 2-day-a-week schedule stuff, right? She's not doing online classes, and she signs up to be a student leader. So now she's on campus on Fridays as well, right? So I asked her, I said, Alex, the funny thing about Alex is she has no idea that what she's doing is amazing. This is just her reality. There's nothing magical about this in her mind. I said, Alex, that's incredible. I said, I just admire your strength and your determination. I said, what motivates you to do this? And she said, Dr. Plinske, I have a little brother and a little sister. And I know that in the future, you're going to have a campus in Point Siena. And then when they get to be my age, I don't want them to have any excuse to not go to college. And because of that, I am trying to be a role model for them. So, Alex, the power of vision, the power of understanding what you're trying to create, and how different that is from ending up at Denny's. Make sense? Power of vision. All right, next one. So you've seen this, right? Never underestimate the power of small group people to change the world. Okay? And the secret is that each of you constitute that small group of people that can change the world. That's what you have to believe. That's the secret to this. You are part of that small group. If not you, then who? So Valencia serves Orange and Osceola counties in Florida. Orange County is home of Orlando. So if you've been to Orlando, you've flown into the airport, you've been to Orange County. Osceola County is actually home to part of Disney World. So if you've been to Disney, you've also been to Osceola County. Kissimmee, you've probably heard of Kissimmee in St. Cloud. It's Kissimmee, not Kissimmee, right? So Kissimmee is located in Osceola County. And historically, Osceola County has had a significantly lower college-going rate than the state of Florida. You can see that data over essentially a decade. We've always been about 10 percentage points below the state average. It gets even worse if I were to plot the college-going rate of all the counties in the state of Florida. Osceola ranked 57th out of 67 counties. That is not a good place to be, right? So there was a small group of people. We got together and we said, we want to do something about this. We don't want to be the county in our region with the lowest college-going rate by a large margin. And look at that, the two counties that Valencia serves, you've got a 10 percentage point differential in the number of students going to college after high school. That's a significant challenge. So literally, it was a group of about 100 people from Valencia, from the Education Foundation that serves the school district, and the school district itself, as well as community members, who came together and said, what are the barriers that are preventing students from going to college? And how could we help students overcome those barriers? And so really interesting things started happening. One of our community foundations stepped up when they heard that students in our county had never been on a college campus before. And they said, well, we're going to solve that. We're going to give you $10,000, and we would like for you to have a bus at every high school throughout the year, taking 100 students every Tuesday and Thursday to the campus. So at least they can see what a college campus is like and get that experience of walking around. So every Tuesday and Thursday, you'll see 100 students on campus getting a tour. We actually brought 1,100 11th graders on a single day to the college. It's a day where it's a faculty contract day, but it's a day that we actually don't offer classes. And what we wanted to do was create a day of mock college for those 11th graders. Get them in with our faculty into a classroom. There was an English faculty member who did a class called Shakespeare and Star Wars. There was a biotechnology professor who did DNA extraction, right? It was many experiences to try to get students to remember how much fun it is to learn and get them excited about going to college. We also have put together a group of student ambassadors who go out and visit the high schools to talk about how they overcame challenges that those students might be facing. So it's really just been a true grassroots effort to say, we're not going to settle for this low college going rate, even though that's been our history. We're going to do something about it. And what's pretty amazing is that that small group of people has caused this increase in a 5-year period. So you'll see that Osceola County's college going rate has increased from 41% to 48.6% between 2011 and 2015. And that state average has remained flat. So there's something magical happening in Osceola County. And the other thing that you'll see, we actually use the Valencia going rate as a leading indicator because the state data tends to be so far behind. Sound familiar? So we actually were able to plot this data point before we had these. So we had an idea that this was going to be good news in this year, and we continue to plot that over time. In Osceola County, of the students who go to college, about 3 out of 4 go to Valencia. So by increasing access to Valencia, we really are increasing access to higher education. So again, don't ever underestimate the power of small group people to change the world. And you are that small group of people who can change the world and transform the community. All right, third one. This is maybe my favorite. So rules are mostly made to be broken and are too often for the lazy to hide behind. Rules. All right, so let's talk about rules. So this was about 4 years ago. I was in my office. It's actually pretty rare for me to be in my office. So when I'm in my office, I really try to use that time as best I can. And I heard a big commotion out at the reception area. And the one thing that I clearly heard was, if I don't see Dr. Plinske today, I'm going to Channel 9. Okay. Let me see what's going on. So I walked out and talked with the student, and she said that she had failed her Spanish class, and it was wildly unfair, and she was going to go to the news. I said, all right. I said, could you give me 24 hours? Could you give me just 24 hours to look into the situation? Let me see what I can find out. So what I found out was that she had already been on her last and final appeal for financial aid and had gotten a letter that if she fails any more classes, she was going to permanently lose her financial aid. So that was what raised this to such high stakes for her. The other thing that I found out was that the Spanish class that she had taken was taught by a brand new part-time faculty member, and 3/4 of the class had received an F. So that's abnormal. That's abnormal, right? So I called our financial aid office and I said, how serious is this rule that when students lose their last and final attempt, they lose their financial aid? And our financial aid office said, well, you know, we can override it, but we have to note in the system who overrode it and for what reason. I said, all right. I said, I think I'm willing to take that chance. I said, what are the possible consequences? And they said, well, if she fails again, she will be a finding in the audit, and your name will be there as the person who overrode our policy. I said, all right, well, thank you. That's what I needed to know. So I looked at the student's transcript. I've never seen a transcript like this. Almost every class, the first attempt was an F or a D, and then there was a second attempt where she passed, right? But oh my gosh, she had 48 credit hours earned over 7 years. Took her a while, but she was getting there, right? Like she was getting close to the point where she was going to finish that degree, but she just had a really difficult time getting there. So the next day I met with the student, and I explained to her that, you know, we did send you multiple warnings and then you got the last one, right? Your last attempt, right? So she knew, and she just continued to say how unfair it was that she failed this Spanish class. And I couldn't disagree with her on that side of things. It was really hard for me to think I'm going to take away her last and final chance on this class where maybe the grading wasn't how it should have been. So I said to her, okay, I can issue you your financial aid one more time. But then if you fail anything else, then it's on me. I said, so can you promise me that you will put as much energy as you did yesterday talking about Channel 9 at the end of the semester into studying at the beginning of the semester? And that got her attention, and she said, I think I can do that. And I said, and do you think that you could commit to going to office hours to visit with your faculty on a regular basis, just check your progress in the class? And she said, what are office hours? I said, would you commit to going to our tutoring center to getting the help? Where's your tutor? She had no idea of the supports that the college had in place, right? So I issued her a letter letting her know we were going to give her one more last and final chance, and asked her to make several commitments, including office hours, including going to tutoring, and including only taking these, I think it was 4 more classes she needed to finish her AA. It was fine. She went away, didn't go to Channel 9, all good, right? About a year and a half later, I'm on the stage at commencement. I have a very important job. I stand by the railing to make sure that the sleeves don't get caught on their way down the stairs, right? That's my job. It's actually great because I get to see all of the students, right? So I'm standing there ushering people down the stairs, and then I heard a name called that sounded vaguely familiar, and then I saw that student walking across the stage. And it struck me how different things could have been if I had just said, I'm sorry, we've already given you your last and final chance. I can't make an exception, right? Now that doesn't mean that rules shouldn't exist at all, or that you should just willy-nilly ignore the rules, right? But most of the rules that we have at our institutions, we wrote. So if they don't work for a student, it's often worth the time to think about, does this make sense? And is there a way to assist the student in this situation? Again, that doesn't mean you can just say, oh yeah, forget about it, everyone gets financial aid, right? That's not appropriate. But it's also not appropriate, in my opinion, to simply apply our policies and procedures without any critical thinking, because a computer can do that. We could just have a computer make all the decisions, right, if you just followed the letter of the law. But that's what I think our roles are as professionals at the institution, is understanding sort of the spirit of those rules and what they're intended to do, right? Financial aid rules are intended to promote academic progress and success, right? So if there's a way, and again, part of this is taking a risk as a leader and saying, okay, I'm going to own it. If she lets me down, that's on me. I'm taking a chance. And you have to know what those consequences are, right? If the financial aid office had told me, and you'll go to jail, probably wouldn't have made the exception, right? So you sort of have to weigh what are those consequences. So yeah, so that was graduation. So rules are mostly made to be broken. So, all right.
What happened to the instructor?
Yeah, she's no longer teaching at the college. I have found, so we had a situation, similar situation in the fall, where an instructor actually failed a student for having written his final exam in pencil instead of pen, and actually graded the final and said, if this had been written in pen, you would have gotten a B. And so in the conversation with the faculty member, we said, so to which learning outcome does writing utensil connect, right? And the answer was, well, somebody's got to teach the student a lesson. So another individual who's, and part of it is just, I think, understanding the values of the institution and making sure that the values of employees align with the values of the institution. I think that sort of tough love probably works in some environments. I don't think it works in our environment. So yeah, you're good job. You've got pen. Yeah. But the good news there is that we have I think a really well thought out grade grievance process. And so students can present their case to a committee, and it consists of 3 faculty, 3 students, and usually 3 staff. And so that committee then makes a recommendation to me. So in that case, the committee also sided with the student and said, okay, you can like take off points for using the wrong writing utensil, but he shouldn't have to retake Comp 1 for a whole, right? Like the punishment didn't fit the crime, sort of thing. So I think, but there's also courage in saying, thanks so much for your service, and we don't think this is a good fit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, okay. So greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do. Oh, was there another?
I just
Yeah.
had a quick question. You had asked that student, they only needed to take 4 more classes to get their degree, but it was a year and a half later that she was graduating. Was she taking 1 class a semester?
Yes. We also talked about She had 3 children, one with special needs, and so we talked about what would be the right pace to be successful. And the great thing is, talk about that determination and that grit, right? To continue. But she was gonna see that finish line, and she's actually now continuing at UCF, studying psychology, and works part-time at our library. I mean, it's just that experience, you know, it's such a pivotal experience, right? We could have just shut the door on her and then, you know, she'd be lost. That's sometimes when this role can feel overwhelming, because it's like, wow, the impact of that decision that you won't know, you see it 2 years later, right? But you don't know in that moment what impact that decision can have sort of on the, sort of a fork in the road, right? So, yeah. Okay, so we have, well, let me start by saying this. This is Jose. Jose was actually the president of our Student Government Association while he was a senior in high school as a dual enrollment student. That's how brilliant Jose is, okay? So really enjoyed working with Jose as our Student Government Association president, and was really looking forward to his leadership the year after his high school graduation, which would have been his second year in college to finish his degree. But I was surprised that I didn't see Jose much at all that year after his high school graduation. And saw him a couple of times on campus, and one of the times I said, Jose, what's going on? Like, why are you only here so little? And he said, you know, Dr. Plinske, he said, I'm glad you asked. He said, I just learned that I can't be deported for telling you that I'm undocumented. And he said, because I'm undocumented, I have to pay out-of-state tuition rates, which is $1,000 a class. And he could only afford to take 1 course a semester. So he was working full-time to pay for 1 class a term. And that was why he disappeared. And the irony is that as a dual enrollment student, all of his classes were tuition free. So he was able to take a full load of courses as a high school senior, and then the second he graduated from high school, suddenly now he was in the bucket of having to pay out-of-state tuition. Jose was brought to the United States by his parents at the age of 2 from Honduras. He had no idea, actually, that he was undocumented until he tried to go for his driver's license and realized that wasn't going to be a possibility for him. So we worked with Jose. We got him hooked up with a donor, got him a scholarship, got him back re-engaged full-time at the campus. But you can imagine how many people have told him he'll never graduate from college, and even if he does, then he won't have any opportunities after that. So Jose rejoined our Student Government Association, and he had a real passion for seeing if there was a way to make a change in the legislation to allow undocumented students to, at a minimum, pay in-state tuition. These are students who have lived in Florida the majority of their lives, don't remember anything about the country in which they were born, don't know any other home, and yet are told, you can't come to our community college, right? So Jose, this is our student government leadership with one of our state senators at the time, and they started lobbying for a change in legislation. And what was really interesting is that our own college attorney said, hey, this is a really great idea, and this is absolutely the wrong year to do it. Politically, this is not a good move. He said, I'll help you, but don't get your hopes up. Well, wouldn't you know it, that those students lobbied so effectively that in that legislative session, they passed a bill to allow undocumented students to pay in-state tuition as long as the students attended a Florida high school for 3 years and then graduated from a Florida high school. And Jose finished his associate degree from Valencia, transferred to the University of Florida, and just recently graduated with a degree in microbiology and political science. And what's so great about Jose is that legacy that he left behind to open that door for so many more of our students. So we have about 500 undocumented students every year that enroll at Valencia and are able to take advantage of that legislation. So he took great pleasure in being able to do what others said that he couldn't. So, and then the last guiding principle that I have to share, and then we can open it up to anything you want to talk about. But I love this. Yes. If you think you're too small to make a difference, just think about that mosquito that's driving you crazy. So, do you all know the Starfish Story? I know Pat, do all of you know it? No, okay. It's funny because like nobody in Florida knows this, which is ironic. So I took the Illinois Starfish Story and took it to Florida. So the story goes something like this. There's a little boy walking along the beach, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of starfish that are sort of stranded in the sand. And the tide has gone down, and these starfish are sort of stuck. And you know, they're at risk of drying out. If they get stuck in the sand and you're in the hot Florida sun, they can dry out and pass away. So the little boy is tossing starfish back into the ocean. And man's watching him and kind of just taking in what he's doing. And there's hundreds on the beach. So the man goes up to the little boy and says, you know, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm saving this starfish. And the man says, but you can't possibly make a difference. There's hundreds. You cannot possibly make a difference. And the little boy kind of looks at him, and then he picks up one starfish and gently tosses it back into the water and says, I made a difference for that one. So sometimes, and this is true of institutions, not just colleges and universities, but just institutions, I think, in general. We don't help the one that we can because it might, in our minds, require us to do the same thing for everyone else who follows, and therefore we don't serve the one that we can. And so my challenge to you is, can you think of a way to help or to best serve the student who's in front of you at that moment? And then the next student who comes, if you can serve them too, great. If you can't, if you ran out of waivers, if you ran out of scholarship funds, okay, then you do the best that you can for that student when they're in front of you. But to not serve someone for the fear of what that might obligate you to do later on, I don't think is ideal practice. And it's sort of like saving this starfish because I can't save the other 300, right? So one of the things that we've done to increase the college going rate are these real fun things called scholarship workshops. Not a really creative idea, right? Except that almost everyone who comes to these scholarship workshops has not even applied for college, doesn't even know how to apply for college. The funny thing is that when we do college information nights, no one comes. But we call them scholarship nights, and we get 100 to 150 people. Okay? So we did a scholarship night, and it's kind of a fun setup. We reserve a classroom like this, do a little bit of overview of college. We have a lot of immigrant families, and particularly in the Caribbean and Central America, there is no such thing as a community college. So even trying to explain the concept of what a 2-year degree is, and then you transfer from there to get, that is very challenging, right? So we do a brief information session, and then we go right into a computer lab where we help students complete their application to Valencia, complete the FAFSA, and write a scholarship essay all in one night. They're completely exhausting to do all of it for the participants and for the staff, right? But the neat thing is you just get it all done. You just get it all done, and there's such a great environment and energy. The students feel like, well, everybody else is in this boat along with me, so we're just gonna get it done tonight. But that essay, that pesky 500-word scholarship essay, right? Like how many students don't apply for scholarships because of that essay? So we have writing center staff there to help. So in January, we had one of these workshops, and a student raised her hand. She was almost in tears. She called me over, and she said, I'm stuck. I don't have anything else to write. And she had Word open, and I've looked. You know how it has the word count at the bottom? Mm-hmm. She had 84 words. 84 words. She had nothing left to say. So I kind of thought about this, like, all right, how am I going to respond to this? So I said, can you just tell me a little bit about your story? Like, why do you want to go to college? What do you want to study? What do you want to be? What career do you want after college? She started telling me the most beautiful story of her 3rd grade teacher, how her 3rd grade teacher just changed her life, and ever since then, she knew that she wanted to be a teacher and she wanted to influence students' lives in the same way. I said, stop talking, start typing. What you are telling me is exactly what you need to include in your essay. So these workshops start at 6 o'clock. We try to be done at 9. It's 9:35 and she's still over there typing, and I just don't want to slow her down, right? But like she's almost the last one left. And finally it was about 9:40 and she raises her hand again. She said, I got 508 words. So she made it. She got her essay done. And the funny thing is, so that's what one of the scholarship nights look like. We do it at the campus, and we also do it at the local high schools and the library. So this is the student. So she saw me at the scholarship awards night a week ago. She said, do you remember me? She said, I was the one who couldn't write the essay. I was like, yeah, I remember you. So not only did she receive a scholarship, but she's also been accepted into our Future Teachers Academy, where students complete their associate's degree at Valencia, transfer to UCF, get their bachelor's degree in elementary education, and the school district guarantees that they will have a teaching job at the end of that 4 years. So it's signing up for the full guarantee. So that student right there is going to be a future teacher in Osceola County 4 years from now. And again, we, I think, could have said, hey, we're done at 9, right? We need to, right? And a very rational thing would be, well, if we stay past 9 for you, we're going to have to stay past 9 for, or you just help the one who's in front of you the best you can. So those are my guiding principles for being unreasonable, and happy to engage in any conversation you'd like to have. So.
You sound like you were really involved.
Thank you. Thank you.
You sound like you're a really involved president. Like, I don't see college presidents going to these little nitty-gritty workshops and things like that. That's really neat.
Yeah, thank you. I have a really hard time, and maybe I just need to get over it, but I have a really hard time asking staff to do things that I don't do. So it's really hard for me to ask staff to stay till 10 o'clock at night at a scholarship workshop if I'm not in the trenches alongside them. So I think that's, again, that's just part of who I am as a leader. It can get a little overwhelming at times, but I just think it's really important to demonstrate to students and staff alike that you're so invested in this that you're going to give your own time to make sure that it's successful. Yeah.
I have a question about the transportation that you're from the 2.5-hour bus.
Yeah.
Is that bus a public bus?
It
or
is.
Is that owned by the college?
No, if we had, I wish we had a college shuttle. It's public transportation, and one of the things that I have learned since living in Florida is that all roads lead to Walmart. So the students who live in Point Siena have to take the bus, the local bus, to the Point Siena Walmart. And then the route runs from the Point Siena Walmart to the Kissimmee Walmart. And then from the Kissimmee Walmart, they can take the bus to the campus. So it's 2 transfers, 3 buses. That's part of the reason why the ride is so long. It's amazing to me that these students can figure it out. It's amazing to me that these students, I can't imagine how they didn't just say this, like, I'm not doing this, that's crazy. It is crazy. We literally have hundreds of students from Point Siena at Valencia currently, but I know that there are thousands who would go if they could, but it's just too much to ask. So that's why I'm so excited. We're opening this new campus in August in the Point Siena community. It's going to be tremendous. We actually have the bus stop before Walmart on our campus, so the road to Walmart stops. We sort of inverted the order, right? So to get to Walmart, you have to get through the campus first. So we really believe that that's going to work. And the other thing that we're doing, it's a little crazy, we're doing cohort-only schedules at the Point Siena campus. So just like I described that REACH model where all the students take all their classes together, we have no traditional class schedule for this campus. Students sign up for a degree program and a date of graduation. And then they get to pick if there are different scheduling options within that. So for example, if you want an AS degree in culinary arts, you meet all day, Mondays and Tuesdays, for the next 2 years. And so you don't have to worry about, is the class I need to graduate going to be scheduled at a time when I can take it? You don't have to worry about rearranging childcare. You don't have to worry about the bus schedule. Once you figure it out that first semester, it's set for the whole length of the program. So we have Associate of Arts that are, 5-day a week, just a little bit of time, 2 days a week, all day, just different models that we think will be attractive to students. But it's a little scary not having a course schedule. I figure if it doesn't go well, like we know how to make a course, right? Like, okay, second semester we can go back to a traditional course schedule, but this is the only time, I think, that you can try something like that just to see how it'll work. So we'll see. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about maybe other support that you have in place for undocumented students? Because we have a large population.
Yeah. So we were really fortunate to have been contacted by this organization called the Dream.us, which is a private foundation that only awards scholarships to undocumented students and has a business plan of going out of business in 5 years. So it's not a foundation that's interested in creating an endowment and awarding scholarships based on interest that's earned. They want to give away all of their money because they feel like the need is right now, which is a really interesting and cool model. And one of the requirements of that is that we have a dedicated advisor for undocumented students. That doesn't mean that he advises exclusively undocumented students, but we have someone who was not undocumented himself. It's an interesting story. His sister was born in Central America, and his parents immigrated to this country. So his sister is undocumented, and then he was born 2 years later as a citizen. So he gets it. He understands, and the students can feel very safe sharing their stories with him. So definitely advising on campus. UCF has actually created a Dreamers organization. So it's a student club for Dreamers and allies of Dreamers. We've been trying to create that at Valencia, and unfortunately, and I totally understand it, students are afraid. There's hesitation to self-disclose. So it seems like once students have somehow, there's something about getting toward the end of that baccalaureate pathway, it seems like students feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit safer in expressing their voice. So we've been trying to create that culture, but we just haven't gotten there yet. The other thing that we have done is we get a certain number of in-state tuition waivers from the state every year. And if a student, for whatever reason, doesn't meet the technical requirements, so if they haven't done the 3 full years and then graduated from a Florida high school, we award in-state tuition waivers to undocumented students to the ability that we can. We've never run out, so that hasn't been a worry. But it's just a commitment that we're able to make to students. The other thing, too, that we have different pots of scholarship dollars that we're able to find for recognizing that they're not eligible for federal aid, that they're essentially paying everything out of pocket. We have some scholarship funds. If students don't get the dream.us, we have other venues to provide for them. So, yeah, absolutely.
What is that website?
The dream.us.
The dream.us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a national program?
It is. So I actually don't know if they have any partner colleges in Illinois. It'd be worth looking into. Certainly they do in California, and then throughout Florida. There are the states obviously have very different. I mean, in Georgia, you can't go at all. Forget in-state or out-of-state. You're just not allowed to enroll at the institution if you're not documented. So they don't. So for example, the organization doesn't partner with schools in Georgia, but what they do is help students in Georgia go out of state to universities like Connecticut to have the opportunity to go to college.
How does Georgia get away with that?
There's a couple of states that just you're not allowed to enroll at a public institution if you're not documented. Right. So there's, yeah.
So you left kind of a legacy of fabulous strategic planning and strategic thinking at MCC when you left here, and I wonder how you've used the concepts of strategic planning as a campus president.
Yeah.
How that fits into the entire college's strategic plan.
Yeah.
And how much time do you spend on the planning process versus the day-to-day operational kind of work of being a leader?
Yeah. So Valencia is a really interesting institution. We actually have about 70,000 students. It's huge. And we are distributed across, right now, 5, soon to be 6 campuses. And I've been telling a few folks, it would almost be like McHenry, Elgin, Lake County, all being part of a system. And students can enroll at any of those campuses, multiple campuses within the same, so you have to be that aligned and that geographically dispersed, which is really an interesting challenge. So when I started, we had the opportunity to create a campus plan, and it was amazing. It had 57 objectives, and it was fantastic. It was like a 12-page plan, right? And one of the things that I did for the first time 2 years ago was a little scary, but I did it. Sent out basically a 360 feedback survey. So it was basically like a Survey Monkey. We use Qualtrics. I don't know if y'all use Qualtrics. Asking anyone at the college to give feedback about my leadership. It's a little scary, yeah. So a couple of the comments that stood out were, I know we're doing a lot of really great things. I'm not really sure why we're doing all of them. So that was kind of a theme in the feedback that I got, and I thought, okay, we need to make the plan and the vision a lot simpler. So version 2 of the campus plan, and it's a campus plan for 3 campuses because I provide leadership for the Osceola campus, the Lake Nona campus, and so I have a system almost within a system, which is a whole other challenge. But it only has 3 goals, and each goal has 4 objectives. And it's essentially, in a nutshell, it's how do we create access for students, so staying true to that increasing the college going rate work. It is how do we make sure that students have the pathways in place to be prepared for careers in our community. So making sure that we have the right programs and making sure that students have access to programs that maybe the other campuses are the only ones that offer it and students can't drive. So you've got the commute from Poinciana to Kissimmee. To get from Kissimmee to one of our other campuses is another hour. So it's just not possible for students to drive. So how do we create access to different pathways for students? And then finally, how do we make sure that students are successful when they're at our, it's that simple. And then there are 4 specific objectives within those 3 simple goals that really help, I think, focus our work. I think one of the challenges is that, yeah, there's 76,000 things that you can do, and if you try to do all of them, you do nothing, right? So how do you pick the ones that we think are going to have the biggest impact right now? And one of the things that we're working on, I don't know, maybe you all have figured this out better than we have, but we want to make sure that students feel like they've been given a very personal welcome at the campus. And so next week, we're going to film maybe a 45-second video that we're going to send to every student after they attend new student orientation to try to, again, welcome them to campus, get them excited about the fall. And then in the fall, what we're doing, we're completely revamping what's traditionally been the faculty welcome back, where it's largely been meetings and workshops for faculty. And we're turning it on its head and trying to do almost like a elementary school open house for students. So we'll have the faculty there because they need to be welcomed back. But could we have an event on campus where students come, meet their faculty, find their classroom, avoid all of, or experience all of the anxiety that you experience on that first day of class, but to get that out of the way before the first day of class so that that first day can really be the first minute as a learning minute. So you know, it's simple, and yet if we didn't say we're going to focus on doing this, lots of other competing priorities could have pushed that away. So that, I think, I kind of think that every time we do a strategic plan or a campus plan, it probably is going to be a little bit different based on what we've learned from the past. But yeah, and I also think the other key is engaging the college community as much as we can in that planning process. I think the best thing that happened to me when I went to Valencia was that the very first project I was given was to work with the architects to design a 150,000 square foot building. Literally my first day on the job, they said, here's your first project. I knew nothing about Valencia and I knew nothing about this campus and what the needs were. And so I couldn't have possibly said, oh, I know everything that we need to do. I just couldn't, right? So I had to take all of that input, and then my role was to sort of synthesize that, weave it together into a coherent vision that made sense. So I try to use that model now for our planning. Again, there's no way that I can know everything that we need to do, but collectively, we all do know what we need to do as a team. So that leader can serve in that role of creating that coherent vision from everyone's experiences at the campus. Yeah?
How long is your strategic plan?
So the college has a strategic plan that is a 5-year plan, and then the campuses have plans that they say 3 to 5. Our longest goals in those plans is it goes out to 2020, and that's really, it's a college going rate goal. We actually set our goal for the college going rate in Poinciana to exceed the state average by 2020. So yeah, we're going to set big goals, and if you don't meet them, you know, but you're going to move the needle, right? Like, who gets excited about 1 percentage point? Like, woo, you know. So our philosophy is set big goals. And if you don't get there, that's okay, but at least you're making progress. We have a grant from the National Science Foundation, and we set as our goal to double the number of Black and Hispanic students that complete an associate degree and transfer into a baccalaureate STEM program in 3 years. Okay, in hindsight, that was completely crazy. Yeah, 3 years, it's a 2-year degree, like what, right? But we've seen a 21% increase in 3 years. That's huge, right? And so as long as we don't tell people the original goal was to double, right? It's really good news. But we've been able to capitalize on that momentum, and just got renewed for additional funding from NSF. They thought 20% was a good increase in 3 years. But I think that's sort of the trick, right? Is to really set aspirational goals. You're gonna see good progress as a result, and sometimes you might just hit them and surprise everyone, right? So, yeah, Tony. Yeah.
Okay, I have to make a comment and ask a question. I told you that I go to Denny's every Sunday. I go to the one in Huntley because my dad lives in Sun City.
Yeah.
But every spring, I go to the Walmart in Kissimmee.
Do you really?
Very nice Walmart, yeah.
Wow.
But here's my question about freshmen who come to your campus
Yeah.
and take developmental math.
Yeah.
English. Do you do anything at Valencia with the high school?
Yeah.
While they're seniors or juniors in high school taking developmental classes?
Yeah, so funny story about developmental education in Florida. 3 years ago, the legislature passed a law that says that when students graduate from high school, they are college ready. So we are no longer able to mandate students into developmental courses, and we are no longer able to test students. Yeah, so students have the right to go into Comp 1 and intermediate algebra as long as they have a high school diploma from Florida. So, but it's interesting, that REACH program still exists because of, I would say, the really great work of our advisors, both in the high schools and at the college, to say to students, yes, you could place yourself into intermediate algebra. However, based on what we see, the odds of you being successful, right, are not particularly high. So what if we got you into this great program? So part of it is working on the advising side with students. We are doing, and have been doing, some really interesting things with curriculum alignment. And we got a tiny grant. It was like $10,000 to do amazing work, which was to pair a senior English teacher from every high school with an English faculty member from Valencia to talk about what are the things that you see at Valencia that you wish the students would have learned in high school, right? And the most amazing thing was that the high school teachers were shocked to learn that the Valencia faculty didn't care if the students had studied British literature their senior year, right? So they were spending weeks upon weeks reading Beowulf or whatever, right? Like, and not focused on how do I construct a paragraph or how do I use a comma, right? And so that, it was fascinating just to create the condition for that conversation to happen. The other cool thing that we did is we hired those high school teachers to be writing center consultants in our learning center so that they could see the mistakes that the college students were making in their writing to inform what they're teaching in the high schools. So that was a really cool partnership. And then we're also, we're hosting all of the high school math teachers this August. And their interest is not so much on aligning the mathematics. I guess that's simpler. Maybe not. But what they're interested in is how to make mathematics classes more engaging. So they're using our faculty development team to train the high school teachers on some of the technologies and things that our faculty are using to try to help make those high school mathematics classes more engaging and interesting to students.
Do you require a fourth year of math in Florida for high school graduation?
I don't think it, so we require, the challenge is that students can complete those high school requirements in middle school. So it's possible to be done with math by your junior year, and then you stop out of math for 2 years, and then it's not that you never knew it, but by the time you get back into that class, you've forgotten it. Yeah.
So when this happened,
Yeah, you can only imagine, right? Yeah.
the high schools, were they required to change their standards at all?
Yeah.
Crazy me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can just imagine all the systems challenges, right? Like we use Banner, all the Banner programming that had to be undone and you can just imagine how exciting that is. Yeah. So if you hear 1720 in Florida, that's the number of the bill. People actually refer to it as the number of the bill. Yes, it's fascinating. Yeah.
Could you talk some about the decision to go with this the cohort-based model versus the sort of idea that we want to offer students lots of opportunities, and whenever they can come, we want them to be able to come? How you like the idea, but I wonder, I often hear arguments against it.
Sure, yeah. So a little bit of backstory is that my boss is Sandy Sugar. So he's the president of Valencia, and then he reports to a board. So I report to a president of the district. And the one direction I got about the Point Siena campus is that it had to be different. Okay, here we go. So how are we going to figure out how to make this different? I think for us, the cohort model is based on a belief that curricular complexity is the enemy of completion. So there is a strong belief that we ought to give students choice, right? And gosh darn it, they have a humanities requirement, and they should be able to choose from the 10 humanities courses that meet that requirement. And at this campus, we're saying, nope, you're going to take Intro to Humanities this semester, and you're going to take Latin American Humanities this semester, and your humanities requirement's fulfilled. So I get pushback on that, right? Like, you're taking away students' choice. For me, what was fascinating is that if you think about many graduate programs, right? Doctoral programs, I did an MBA program, everything is preset. You pay your bill every semester, you show up on the first day, they tell you which classes you're in, and they give you your books, right? For students who are best prepared to put together a complete degree program, right? And then for first generation students, we're like, here's the catalog and our 30,000 course offerings. Hope you can figure it out, right? So that felt backward, right? So could we borrow from that model and really provide that to the students who would need that support the most? The other thing that we've done, we've created about, I want to say 25 schedule options. So it's not that students have to go Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4, right? So we have evening, weekend options. We have options that are literally 7 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, or 7 to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I feel like we're providing schedule choice in an appropriate way. And I also feel like we're providing program choice in an appropriate way, in an honest way. We're saying these are the 6 associate in science degrees that you can complete. If you want to get an associate in science and engineering, this is not the campus for you. And to allow you to start with the hope that maybe I can, right? I feel like it's just being brutally honest with students. And the other question I get is, do you think students are going to like this? Or are they going to wonder why they can't pick, why they can't go on Rate My Professor and pick their courses, right? And because this community serves such a large first-generation population, we're not getting that pushback. It's as if, okay, this is just what it means to go to college, right? Like, and in a way, it's similar to what they've experienced in high school, which often is used as a derogatory comment, right? Like, that's just like high school. Okay, and if it allows them to go to college and complete a degree, I'm not right. Like, I'm not sure that I understand the problem. So we'll see. I mean, so far, we did the first couple of new student orientations, and it was like, oh, what are they going to say? Like, are they going to like this? Are they going to really push back? And so far, they're like, wow, this is really cool. Mostly because so many of them have to work. They're really excited about getting the work schedule figured out and then not having to tell their boss every 16 weeks, I need a new schedule, right? Or not having that fear of, gosh, is that one class I need going to be offered at a time when I can't do it, or at a campus I can't make it? So to me, it's a promise. We're making a promise to the student. You hold your end of the bargain and pass all of your classes, which is not a given, right? And for me, my biggest worry is, what am I going to do with those students who pass 3 of the 4, or 2 of the 4, or 1 of the 4? So an interesting term we'll have for those students is resequencers. I love it. That was like a breakthrough this week. Oh, we're going to call them resequencers rather than any other term you could think, right? So that's what keeps me awake at night, is how are we going to do that advising on the micro level for each student if they get off the path. But if they stay on the path, we're guaranteeing them that degree.
What about the starting on the path at different points? Is
Yeah.
that not such an issue? Students
Yeah.
come in and they
You
already
guys,
have, they've tested
anybody,
out.
I'm gonna have to.
Yes.
Please
Yes.
stay,
Okay.
and please stay if you can, but if you have to leave, I just want to make a note of the time.
Thank
And,
you.
You know, thank you for spending part of your holiday weekend.
Yeah, no, that's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
So stay,
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair? Okay, well, here we are.
Yeah, we were really worried about dual enrollment and AP credit. And unfortunately, because of the community that we're serving, we're not finding a lot. And it will really allow us to be intentional in terms of designing those dual enrollment pathways for those schools now that we'll be much more accessible to those high schools. Yeah, good, all good questions. Exactly what we're worrying about. Yeah, yeah.
How are you balancing your work life with your personal life, which is something I used to ask you all the time?
Yeah.
Are you having any fun?
Yeah. So I feel the need to be honest in that answer and not well. That's just, and I've just decided that's just the way it's going to be. If I didn't have a husband, I couldn't even take care of my dog. Like that's the honest. If I'm being honest with you, that's the answer. But you know, I mean, you don't have to feel bad for me. We go on golf trips. That's fun. We let's see. I signed up for I'm here today to visit family. I bought the MLB package so I can watch the Cubs, which should be fun, but is miserable right now. Like I don't know what's going on. But
How many World Series games were you at here?
you know. There was a moment where I thought, oh yeah, whatever the cost is, it's worth it, right? And then I went on StubHub and I'm like, it's $3,500 for standing room only. That's ridiculous. Like even for me, that is ridiculous. So instead, I'm living vicariously through the brand new minor league baseball team in Kissimmee called the Florida Fire Frogs. Awesome. We got a suite on Friday last week from the foundation. I got to throw out the first pitch, which was terrifying because like a week before I realized there is no upside to this. Like there's no upside. There's plenty of opportunity for really bad things to happen, but even if I throw a strike, like no one cares. So my only goal was to not show up on ESPN that evening. So yeah, but I think to do this job and to your question, like you have to, in a way, this has to be like your hobby, right? It's like it's blending avocation and vocation. Otherwise, you can't do it. If you're trying to lead two separate lives, I don't believe there's a way to do that, you know, and live fully. So I get it. I love doing. Yes, it's a right? I just love doing this. I love reconnecting with, you know, my hometown community college, right? Love going out to the community. Love. The coolest moment was realizing now I know what you do with a degree in physics and Spanish, right? Right? Get a National Science Foundation grant at a Hispanic serving institution, right? So I'm like a regular on Telemundo, which is maybe the most terrifying thing that I do. Woo! Going on TV in Spanish. So the funny story is the very first time I was on TV in Spanish, it was when Governor Scott visited one of our campuses, and our PR person said, "Oh, hey, Telemundo, Dr. Plinske speaks fluent Spanish. You can interview her." I was like, "What? No. And what was worse is that the governor was doing a press conference on something that I didn't know anything about. It was a program at one of our other campuses. I couldn't have even done the interview in English. So I'm like in the back of the room. So my first thought was, I'm leaving. Like, I'm just going to disappear. What's the worst thing that can happen? I'm just going home. That was my first thought. My second thought was like, yeah, I can't do that. I've got it. So I'm like researching in the back, like, in English, what these degrees are that the governor is announcing, and then standing next to a student who is from Peru, helping me translate like electrical engineering to make sure that I was going to say it right. And what I did during the governor's press conference was I wrote out like 3 short paragraph answers. And I decided that no matter what they asked me, I was going to say one of those 3 short paragraphs. So that was my first experience on Telemundo. Fortunately, it's gotten a little bit more comfortable since then, but yeah, that's, you know how like they always say, there's all those Facebook memes like push yourself out of your comfort zone, that's like healthy for you. That's what I feel that is. I'm like, all right, we're going on TV in Spanish. Here we go. So, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
Do you have an adult education program in your school?
Yeah, we do not. Florida is really funky in that some of the counties have assigned the adult education function and vocational education. So like automotive program, like some of our core programs here, I was like, where are they all at Valencia? They are at the school district. So the school district actually has an adult learning center and a technical education center. But that's not true of all counties in Florida. So the county, 2 counties north, Seminole County, is a comprehensive community college like Valencia is. So for me, that's a real challenge because I think the college could serve a really powerful role in helping adults learn English and helping adults earn their GED. And so we're partnering with the school district to almost get permission to have the opportunity to do some of those things. So for example, we offer an intensive English program that's a completely different format than the school district so as not to compete, where students go from 9 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon, 5 days a week, and try to level up very quickly. And then we received the Department of Labor grant for something called Youth Build, which is to allow students to complete their GED and then also earn construction credentials so that they can be hired after a year and really go on a construction work site and find a job. So, and then we're also, you're finding many more continuing education programs that are serving sort of the adult learning mission. So we have basic construction, a 5-week program at the Osceola campus, and we're adding a heavy equipment machinery program, which is really exciting. We have simulators with bulldozers and things that students will be able to complete at our campus. And it's been a really interesting shift. I've even heard things like, oh, that's beneath us. Oh, no. See, that's our mission. To serve the community. So it's really been an interesting journey to try to transform that image of who we are, that it's not less important to help someone be credentialed to get a job than to help someone be credentialed to go on to get a bachelor's degree, right? So that's been a really interesting cultural shift. But again, that's only half the counties have that set up in Florida. The other half of the counties have a comprehensive community college like MCC is. Yeah, it's a good question.
Kind of sad. I'm sure there's plenty of dropouts just.
Yeah. It was really that was one of the really difficult things for me to understand when I'm like, well, but where? That seems it just makes to me the comprehensive mission just makes so much sense, right? Like no matter what your needs are, you can come to MCC. You're not labeled or set in different directions. So that is something that I miss, but I also. We're sort of bringing back, if you will, particularly to Osceola County where that need is so great. Yeah, it's a good question.
Do they pay for the intensive program?
The students? Yes, there is a tuition cost. We have partnered with our local workforce investment boards so that if it's part of preparing for a job, students can get ITAs to get scholarships to pay for that training. Yeah, sure?
More of a broad-based question. We have a lot of specifics. What caught my ear was the culture. You come in as a leader. Gonna put you right there. Top 3 tips to change the culture. That paradigm shift of people thinking a little bit differently about something that they've always done before because that's the way we do it.
Yeah. So I think as a new leader, the most important thing you can do is listen, because you have to genuinely understand the culture, and everyone else has to believe you understand the culture before you can go in and start saying, okay, now here are the changes we need to make, right? So probably one of the best things that I did when I started was I set up a meeting with every single employee. It took me about a year, but everybody got 30 minutes of one-on-one time with me to really, for me to get sort of a lay of the land. Like everybody. Custodians to our most senior faculty and everybody in between. And now what's challenging is after 7 years you need to refresh that, right? You need to replenish that. So now I'm doing things like having lunches with 10 faculty and staff, right? Just to spark those same conversations. Literally inviting faculty to Fire Frogs games, right? To just get a chance to rekindle those relationships. It's funny.
Do they go?
Yeah, but it is funny though that yeah, yeah, Pat.
Oh, cut the tape.
Pat, I miss having Pat around. I do. I used to do, so here I did Ask Kathy Anything. And they were very well attended.
Yeah.
And then I started doing Ask Kathy Anything down there, and nobody comes. It's the weirdest thing. And I'm like, did they have any questions? Like, I don't, but so it's just really interesting that things that were so needed here in this culture, so I would say listening. I would say regular communication, where you take the time to explain why. So I did the Aspen Presidential Fellowship last year. I think there's somebody from McHenry that.
Oh, yeah.
Terry
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw your picture on their website.
Oh.
Was that you?
Was that you?
You were
If it
sitting
was
in,
her picture.
you were just sitting in the middle of a big group?
Maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your likeness.
Was it a beach bug?
I saw your picture, was that you?
Yeah. I bet it
It
was.
was in the fellowship, it was on the Aspen Fellowship webpage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the weeks for this fellowship was out at Stanford, and they had all these highfalutin professors telling us all these things about leadership and everything. And probably the most insightful thing that I learned, which is actually kind of embarrassing to admit this, but the most insightful thing that I learned was that the most important word a leader can use is because. So oftentimes it's so obvious to the leader why we're doing something, or why we're making a decision, or why we're adding this program, or why we're removing that. And you're on chapter 12. And everyone else at the college, unless they've been deeply involved in those conversations, they may still be in the introduction. And if you don't explain because, either you seem out of touch, or worse, others will fill in the because for you. And it may or may not be what you intended. And that was a lesson I learned with increasing the college going rate, is I started hearing faculty say, well, she just wants us to lower standards. What? Wait, no. I want to make sure that students have the opportunity to go to college. And when they're here, I want you to work them as hard as you ever have. But because I didn't fill in that blank about why increasing the college going rate was so important, other motives got attributed for me because I didn't. So I still send that weekly email, that habit that I started here. And it's 7 years, I haven't missed a one. And I never will, because I heard, after I was there about 6 months, I heard that the full-time faculty had made a bet on how long that weekly email would continue. So you'd better believe it, that there's never going to be a missed week, right? Yeah. But instead of just sending out a weekly email with stuff, it's taking the time to make sure that I'm saying this is how it connects to the campus plan, or this is how it connects to our community's needs. This is why we're doing this work, right? And that just takes a lot more time and a lot more energy than just copying and pasting stories from people that they send in about this is a conference I went to. Instead of it just becoming a conglomeration of noise, how do you paint that coherent narrative for why the work is important?
So how much time during your week that you spend on that email?
Yeah, so that is my Friday morning at 5 a.m. routine. So I get up at Fridays at 5 and I write that pesky email. And there are Fridays that I wish I didn't know about that bet. But that's the one time that most people aren't willing to meet. So I'm pretty sure that I've got that time. But even like tomorrow, I have to write my email tomorrow morning to send to the campus. And it goes out on Sundays at 6, which is, I think, a great time. Some people read it on Sundays. Most staff read it first thing in the morning when they come in on Mondays, and that seems to work well. So listen, I think communicate effectively, and I think don't underestimate the power of authenticity. So if you're recommending a culture change, that has to be you. It can't be, sorry, Pete, I just totally touched the mic. That's going to blow up your audio. It can't be something that, you read in a book or you saw at another institution like that. You've got to own that and be willing to walk the walk. Again, you've got to be willing to do what you're asking your staff to do, right? So what changes are you willing to make as a leader to show others in the institution that, change isn't all bad?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was it felt like an interview question or something. Well, this has been fun.
It's great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, yeah, yeah.
Great. Thanks for coming out. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, you